So you've decided to build a house and put a nice network into it, but you're looking for maybe some options. If you see me on TikTok, you know that we really promote the Ubiquiti line of products, and I love a nice network head-in like the one you see right here. So I wanted to just take a little time to kind of break down some costs for you. What does it cost to put in a nice system like this in your new construction home and have a nice network head-in with Wi-Fi built into the property? So today we're going to dive into that. We're going to just break down, if you were to put this exact same thing in your home with some access points, what would something like that cost? So here we go. Hi guys, my name is Tim Trich and welcome to the Ethernet Blueprint channel, where we really focus on helping people get network cabling pulled throughout their new construction home in a way that helps them have a great network, great Wi-Fi. We talk about future proofing and just everything you can do during that building process to be able to have a nice functional network in your home. Because once the walls go up, there's not much you can do after that, at least affordably. So for today's video, we're going to be talking about some costs. Now, if you follow me on TikTok or you've seen my other stuff I do, I'm pretty prone to the Ubiquiti product, especially with a new construction home. I think their model fits that size of project really well, and their equipment is actually fairly affordable. There are a few other models out there, a few other players in this field that have also made some attractive solutions. So Meraki Go, for example, and TP-Link Omada have also got some very affordable access points and network head-in that's cloud managed, that allows you to remotely manage it. It's going to be better than, going down to Best Buy and picking up some sort of a mesh system, but also not enterprise level where you got to pay ridiculous costs and license fees and all this crazy stuff. So today we're going to focus on what would it cost to put this system in a house. But just know that what we're talking about probably is pretty similar across the line with the networks that you've been looking at. The other thing is that I want to talk about cost-wise is actually putting in something like a network rack. Is it expensive? Is it cheap? Is it, going to take the price point to another level? We're going to talk about that today too, so you would know what it takes to build exactly something like this with some Wi-Fi access points in your home to be able to have great Wi-Fi coverage. So let's break this down a little bit and talk about some costs. So the first cost I want to talk about is with the network rack itself. So this rack here is by RackPath. It is a 6U open frame rack. You can actually work on it from all different angles, which I actually really like. If you have your cabling done nice and neat, an open frame rack is really functional because it's easy to work on. And also, I think it adds a certain sex appeal to your network. You could do a network shelf, and I'm sure we can make things look really nice, but there's just something about a network rack that makes things look better. Now, this particular network rack, like I said, is open frame from RackPath. There's a lot of them out there, but this particular one is $88. So it really doesn't add a ton of cost to put something like this in. There was some assembly required, but it only took about 5 minutes to put together, and it's really sturdy, not going anywhere, and it houses the equipment very nicely. Now, they do make a couple different sizes of this. This is a 6U rack, or what we refer to as a 6U rack. They make 9U, 12U, 15U, and they just keep on going. There are other types of racks as well. So you can have a fully enclosed rack. There's floor rack models that sits on the floor with maybe some casters. And then there's ones that are as tall as me, be a full-size 42U or 48U rack that you could also put in your house if you have a lot of equipment. But for something as simple as a network, I like to go with something easy and kind of compact like this. All my network equipment fits into it really nice, and it just gives it a nice, clean look. So, like I said, this one here is $88. And then you're probably going to need some fillers, some little things that kind of make it nice. So in this particular rack, I have some horizontal cable management, and I also have a couple what we refer to as 1U brush plates. So a brush plate allows you to run cabling through, but still kind of gives it that nice solid look. I don't like using brush plates if you're running all your cables through, because they'll all start to kind of move together and kind of make a big hole. But that's where something like this is going to come in handy. But between all the plates you see in front of you, these two brush plates and this horizontal management, you're talking around between 40 and 50 bucks. So again, not a lot of cost. Now, You may have a need to put a shelf in yours, and shelves would go in here. They just mount in, and it just gives you a shelf, and you can actually set your equipment on it. Works great for, like, say, a speaker amp, or maybe your NVR isn't, maybe you have a camera system with an NVR and it doesn't rack mount, but it's, sits in here, so you can actually set it on a shelf. Most shelves run between 25 and 30 bucks a piece, depending on how deep a one you get or how big, but they are a nice addition for equipment that isn't actually rack mountable. Now, just one thing I want to comment on that is if you are stacking stuff on a shelf, typically you might need a little bit more space, because when you put things on a shelf, they set up and they're actually taking up, 2 spots. So if your shelf is down here, you might not be able to put another piece of equipment up. You might have to mount it a little higher, which means you might need a little bit more rack. So depending on what you're trying to fit in your rack will really determine what size you need. So between the rack and the horizontal cable management and the brush plates, you're really not looking at much cost. It was very simple to install. Just make sure you hit a stud so it stays securely wherever you're at. Okay? The next thing I want to talk about is the UPS. So I'm a big believer in having a UPS in your rack. And what this really boils down to is just being able to provide your rack with some nice clean power. For the most part, all UPSs are different. And they come in a lot of different flavors and costs. I try to go middle of the road and find something affordable. So this particular rack-mounted UPS is actually made by CyberPower. It is a 500 VA UPS, rack mountable, has a cover so you don't accidentally bump the power, and really is a nice addition to our rack here. Doesn't take up a lot of space. It's not a deep form factor, so you got plenty of room to work behind it. It comes with 4 ports on the back that are both battery backup and surge protection, as well as 2 that are just surge protection only. So it really makes a nice addition to any rack. Now, before I move on to the equipment, I want to touch base about patch panels. I can already see the questions coming. I have a lot of people ask me, where's your patch panel? Where's your patch panel? Patch panels are really great. Matter of fact, my normal rack for my home, this is my lab environment, but my normal rack for my home, I do use a patch panel. And what that allows me to do is a couple things. One, you do get some nice clean jumpers, and it allows me to color coordinate my cables. So on my particular rack, I have some yellow cables that are my access points, some red cables that run to certain rooms in my house, and then I have some different colored cables for my cameras and just things like that. So when I look at my switch, I can see a whole bunch of different color coordinated cables here, and I know which ones are access points and whatnot. So a lot of people will be looking at this video and going, all right, where's your patch panel? Why aren't you using one? So here's my thoughts on that. Agree or disagree, this is my thought. So one thing about a patch panel that I don't like is the ports go all the way across. So port 1 would be over here, 2, 3, and so on. But if my switch, you can see a lot of times my switches have the ports over to this side. So if I'm jumpering, I'm having to jumper all the way across to get to those ports. I like stuff to look a little bit more vertical, more straight up and down. I think it gives it a nice cleaner look. That's me personal. Sometimes people, that may not bother a lot of you, but it's something that kind of bothers me. The patch panel people and the switch people need to get together and kind of figure things out so we can just jumper straight down and not have to need certain length of patch cables to go here and then shorter patch cables here. It just, to me, it doesn't look as clean. Now, one thing I will tell you is we are terminating our riser cable right here. And a lot of people will say that's a no-no. They'll say that because this is solid core riser cable that when you crimp the ends, they don't go up into the solid core copper part of the cable very well, and you leave yourself open to issues down the road. When you punch this down on the back of a patch panel, it terminates it in a way where that copper sits in between 2 metal pins like this. And so it ensures, because it's a V and it's just kind of pinching it, that you get a better connection. And I will not disagree with that. That is 100% true. You will get a better connection with a patch panel than you would by actually crimping the ends on. However, I will also say this. We buy nice ends Not the cheap knockoff kind that are, they sell them really cheap. These are Cat 6 pass-through ends, and we spend a little extra money on getting some nicer ones. And I am yet, out of the last 10 years that I've been doing this, had to go back and re-end a cable because the connection all of a sudden was loose or got bad. I just haven't run into it. I haven't found a need to not do it this way. There hasn't been a good enough reason for me to use a patch panel every time. So when I'm talking to you guys, the home user who's going to be doing this on their own, if you can just put ends on riser cable and not have to buy the patch panel, buy the punch down tool, buy a whole bunch of different jumpers, that adds cost to your build. And since we're talking about costs, I'm guessing your patch panel is going to be around 40 or 45 bucks. Your punch down tool, I don't even know what those things cost, but a nice one's probably going to be 40 or 50 bucks. And then you're going to have to buy a bunch of various length cables, so you're talking a couple bucks a cable, which isn't much. But again, right now, we're just talking about putting some ends on and everything just works. So, and in my personal opinion, it looks cleaner. So before all my patch panel haters out there or lovers out there comment on this, I just want to let you know where I'm coming from. I just haven't found a big enough reason to install one in every single case. I haven't found it. Now, there's a lot of things in regards to the patch panel. This is the last thing I'll say. In regards to the patch panel, there's a lot of things you can do to still give it a nice clean look. I could run cable down into cable management, hide the cable around the back, and come up into my switch. So it goes straight down here and then straight up into my switch. However, now I need a bigger rack because I have my patch panel, I have my cable management for that, I have my equipment, and then I have my actual cable management for here. So instead of buying a 6U rack like I have here, maybe I need a 9U or a 12U to house that additional space needed for that patch panel to make it look nice to my specifications. So again, this is personal preference, guys. I've been doing this a long time, and I just haven't had a really solid reason to go back and put a patch panel on every one of my jobs. I just haven't seen the need to add the cost. Now, you may agree or disagree, and that's okay, but I want to focus on cost, and that would be a cost that you would need to factor in if you were looking to add a patch panel to your rack. Let's talk about cost on our physical equipment. That's the part you're probably wanting to know about anyway. So this top piece of equipment right here is Ubiquiti's UDM-Pro. Now, there is a couple flavors of it. This is the regular UDM-Pro. There is a UDM-Pro SE Special Edition that has a couple more feature sets, but really I think you get a lot of bang for your buck with this particular device, and some of the benefits that come with the SE you can accomplish by just getting a little bit nicer switch. So I don't know that there's a big reason to make the upgrade. However, take a look at the differences between the SE and the regular UDM if you're curious in your particular case. Maybe you can avoid buying a switch altogether by paying a little bit extra for the nicer model, because it does involve some stuff with the switch port here. So the UDM-Pro is Ubiquiti's router, firewall, NVR camera recorder, network controller. It does door access. It does voice over IP phones. There's all sorts of pieces built into this device, all in one really nice piece of hardware that only costs $379. So you really get a lot of bang for your buck. Now, that doesn't include your hard drive. So if you'd like to put a hard drive in, you plan on using some of the Ubiquiti cameras, you'll need to provide a hard drive in here as well. And I believe you can put up to an 8 terabyte hard drive, depending on how much recording, how many cameras you have, how far back you want to go, and that sort of thing. Right now, for my intents and purposes, I have a 1 terabyte hard drive in here because this is just a lab environment. Now, there are some really cool things that this device can do. First and foremost, it can handle up to 10 gig connection. So you can put an SFP in here, either copper or fiber, that will handle up to 10 gig on your WAN side. There's also a 10 gig LAN side port 2, so you can actually run 10 gig between it and your switch and have a nice 10 gig backplane, which is really, really nice. It comes with an 8-port switch built right into it. This is a smart switch. It can do VLANs and all sorts of things that you can do with a smart switch. None of these ports are PoE, just so you know, and it just really is a powerful device. Now, the Wi-Fi in the network and the switch and all the configurations that we do throughout our entire home are actually done in this UDM-Pro. It is the controller for the network. And so basically what that means is you make your configuration changes in one place and it sends out all of that information to all of your equipment. So when I make my Wi-Fi name, I'm actually logging into this device, programming my Wi-Fi name, and then it sends that information out to all my access points, switches, and any device that needs to know about that Wi-Fi name. Okay, so $379, really a lot of value for what you get, and very affordable. It can do things like content filtering. So you could, for example, create, say, like a kids network on this device, and a kids Wi-Fi network, and then you could do application protection. So you could, block pornographic content or VPNs or things like that. So it has some built-in application control and stuff like that as well that make it a really nice piece of equipment for any home network, especially ones with kids and whatnot. $379. The next piece of hardware in here is Ubiquiti's 16-port, 150-watt PoE fully managed switch. Now, I like this switch. If you're not worried about the 10 gig speeds, this switch, you really get a lot. And the reason I like it is because of how much power it has. PoE is becoming more the norm. Right now, even PoE lighting and stuff like that is becoming more the norm. So our access points, cameras, all that use PoE to be able to turn on. That's power over Ethernet. So this actually provides 150 watts of power by itself. And you get PoE on all 16 ports, which I actually really like. A lot of PoE switches, only the first 8 ports are PoE, and then the rest ones are just regular ports. And that's what they do to kind of keep costs down. All right. And a lot of them also cap out, especially this size of switch, cap out around 95 watts of power. So you're limited on how many devices you can run off a certain switch. So you really get a lot of bang for your buck on this. Now, even with it only limited to 1 gig at $299, you get a lot of switch here. Fully managed, you can do VLANs and everything. You get all that PoE output. It does have the ability to use SFPs and run a fiber or a copper 1 gig connection between it and the router. Just a lot of nice function built into a switch. Now, I wanted to talk about switches just a little bit. In regards to this guy, if you need more horsepower or more power, or you want that 10 gig capability, Ubiquiti makes a Pro series of their switch. So there's a 16-port Pro series, I believe. I know there's a 24-port PoE Pro. There's a 48-port PoE Pro. Obviously, the cost is much higher. I believe the 24-port PoE Pro is in the $500 to $600 range. So it's going to cost you a little bit more. But with that, you get some enhancements. Right, you're going to get 10 gig capability. So you could go from your UDM-Pro to your switch and get a 10 gig connection between them, either copper or fiber, your choice. You're also going to get some PoE Plus and PoE Plus ports. So some PoE devices require more power than others. And so in a case like this, if a device is PoE Plus, I am unable to power that device with this switch. I would have to use a power injector that either comes with the device or I'd have to purchase one separately. So the Pro Series switch, while you are paying more money, you do get more power. I think the 24 port is like 400 watts. So you get quite a bit more power. And again, all the ports are PoE, but like I was talking about with some of the other PoE switches, only certain ports are PoE++, and other ports in the switch are just regular PoE plus ports. So a lot of PoE and plussing in that part of the conversation. But this particular switch right here, $299, it's going to power your APs for you, it's going to power some cameras for you, and it's going to do a really great job, and you just get a lot for your money. All right, next we're going to talk about access points. So my go-to access point right now with Wi-Fi 6 being so popular is Ubiquiti's U6LR. That is what this is. It is a ceiling-mounted access point, so really great for new construction homes where you actually map out and plan where you want your Wi-Fi to be. Simply pull a Cat 6 or Cat 6A line to a ceiling location, put it in a single gang box. You can mount this AP and you get Wi-Fi in all directions. So it allows you to get Wi-Fi positioned in the middle of a room as opposed to a mesh system or a third-party Wi-Fi system that has to plug into a wall and usually has to sit over near a wall. This allows you to get Wi-Fi in the center of the room, and they're a really effective way to get Wi-Fi. This particular U6LR, $179 for one. So if you needed three, you kind of do the math. Now, the reason I really like the LR specifically is it's a really powerful AP. The antennas in it are pretty strong, and you get some pretty good distances from this thing. And it's been kind of my go-to for any new construction home where we've helped on the project. Typically, I don't do more than 3, maybe 4 of them, but it'd have to be a pretty big house to need 4 access points of this nature. So 3 goes a really long way, and they seem to work really well. Now, if you're interested in the specs, I don't want to get too into details, but this is a 4x4 MIMO, or multiple user, multiple input, multiple output. So it can handle 4 simultaneous Wi-Fi 6 devices at the same time, simultaneously. Nice little power, nice little device, all run off of PoE+. All right, the next one I want to talk about is the U6 in-wall. And the U6 in-wall is a little bit different. It's not designed to go on your ceiling. It's actually designed to go into a box on the wall. Now, I really like these guys for an office for a couple reasons. One, there's a 4-port fully managed switch on the bottom of it. So you put one Ethernet into it, you mount it on the wall, and you get a 4-port switch right out the bottom, which is really nice. So when you think about an office situation, you could run one wire to the office, mount this in here. You ensure that office is going to have great Wi-Fi coverage because the access point's right there, and you have a 4-port switch to hook up your printer, maybe a desktop computer, scanner, whatever stuff may be in your office without having to run all the extra cables. So I really, really like this guy. The U6 in-wall also runs $179 and is just a really great access point. It doesn't have as strong a signal as, say, the U6 LR ceiling mounted kind. So you may need, if you're only doing this kind of wireless in your house, you may need to sprinkle a little bit more of them around. The other part of it is because they're on a wall, they're kind of the downside, they have the same downside as more of a consumer grade because they're near a wall. You don't really put them in the middle of a room as often unless you wired them that way. One other really nice benefit to these is we've actually mounted them behind TVs. So you actually use the Ethernet line behind there for your TV. You got good Wi-Fi in your living room, and then you can use these ports to physically hardwire your smart TV or your smart device or your Roku or whatever. So they sit pretty flush with the wall, and as long as it works with your TV bracket, they work really well. So I really like the U6 in-wall. All right, last I want to talk about outdoor Wi-Fi. Now, Ubiquiti has a ton of access points, so if this piques your interest at all, I encourage you to go down to their store and just take a look at what they have to offer. They really have a ton of stuff, including a Wi-Fi 6 enterprise version of their AP, which adds the 6 gigahertz channel. I believe it's an extra $100 and it's at $279. So it is going to cost you a little bit more, but you actually are able to get that 6 gigahertz frequency that's offered with Wi-Fi 6E. So kind of a cool thing. Now let's talk about outdoor Wi-Fi. Guys, when you're building a house, you have the perfect opportunity to extend your Wi-Fi from inside to outside. So if you plan on entertaining outside, maybe you have a pool or a barbecue pit area or something, or even a dock. Maybe there's an area where you have a boat, you're on a lake and you want some coverage out at your dock. You're gonna wanna run a line out for outdoor Wi-Fi. Now, this particular access point is Wi-Fi 5, but it's really, really powerful and still does a great, great job. This is the AC Mesh Pro and runs $199. Now you can see it's pretty good size, right? It's a good size AP. So it's gonna, if it sits on your house, it's gonna take up some space. However, this thing will shoot signal really far. I've shot these things close to 100 yards and still was able to pick up Wi-Fi signal. So this guy is pretty powerful. Just so you know, they have a non-pro series of this, and it's called the AC Mesh Outdoor Wi-Fi Access Point, and it's more of a pencil looking. So it's really thin and just has a couple antennas that stick out that you can kind of adjust, and it's $99. Works really well. You just don't get quite the distance. So if your outdoor entertaining area is close to the house and you don't want something as big like this attached to the side of your house, then maybe elect to go with that outdoor Wi-Fi pencil and pencil style access point to cover that area and still be a little bit more inconspicuous. So Really, really great outdoor options. They're made to be out in the elements. Here in the Midwest, we get snow and all that stuff. We leave them out all year long. They're not going to hurt anything. So really, really nice access points. Also able to be powered off a PoE plus switch. So you don't even need a special switch to power them, which is nice. Okay, so that about covers pricing. Now the next thing I want to do is let's put this all together. Let's kind of wrap this up. So what would stuff cost? What would all this cost if you were wanting to just put the rack, the switch, everything? If you do the math and add up everything individually, and let's say you were running 3 access points without the outdoor Wi-Fi, you're going to be looking around $1,500, around $1,700 if you run the outdoor access point. So I know that maybe seems like a lot of money, but at the end of the day, you're building in an architecture and an infrastructure that's going to last you for years to come. The important part, and the part that we preach about, is the wiring. Okay, so the wiring is the important part. You're building this home. You have exposed beams. You can get wires wherever you need them very, very easy. So at Ethernet Blueprint, we really, really encourage you to plan this out. Let's get this picked out. Let's design this thing from the start. How many switch ports are you going to need? How much power are you going to need? Are you running cameras? Let's future-proof your home. And in fact, we have a guide that actually is designed to help you. There's a link in the description here that is actually designed to help you do just that. It is our Ethernet Blueprint Complete Planning Guide that's literally designed to help someone from start to finish make sure they have wiring in the right place, including making suggestions where you want wiring in your house, how to wire up the DMARC so you make sure that any internet provider can get their service back to your rack, how to plan a nice network head end, where to put your network head end, and everything. So it really covers the gamut. So when you're building your home, it takes a lot of the guesswork out and asks the right questions and talks you through the right processes so you can plan this thing from the start. Because once the walls go up, it's kind of too late and things start to get expensive. We even talk about future-proofing and best ways to do that. So on that subject, the last thing I'm going to talk about is the physical cabling. I know we're talking about pricing of equipment, but this kind of ties into pricing as well. Typically, our standard has been pulling Cat 6 cabling into a new construction home. It's been the standard now for a while, up from Cat 5e. However, with 10 gig on the rise, Cat 6 can only do 1 gig for 100 meters. And so typically that's more than enough distance in your home to be able to run 1 gigabit connections everywhere. Now, 1 gig is plenty fast. It's going to help you stream. It's going to help you run your music. It's going to help you do that sort of thing. But there's a lot of people out there who like the idea of future-proofing their home so they never need to worry about this again. The common example that comes up is the intercom system. Man, when intercoms were the rage back in the day, they were stuck one in every house, and now we can't even reuse the wiring for an intercom system. And most of the times we're either pulling them out and patching up the holes in the wall. We just don't use them anymore. And so, people, if you're building your forever home, what can we do right now to get a little bit more future-proof? And the answer is Cat 6A. You're going to want to run Cat 6A to the locations in your home, specifically TVs, access points, maybe in your office. I mean, I don't think everywhere in your house needs 10 gig, but if you're running cables anyway, you might as well just run it everywhere, and it gives you the ability for 10 gig speeds everywhere throughout your home. Guys, that is going to protect you for years to come. I just don't really see the homes needing 40 gig or 100 gig for what we use. Now, I don't have a crystal ball any more than the next guy, but I just don't really see things going that crazy. When I was a data center guy, those were the speeds we were doing in a data center that had multiple sites connecting back. I mean, a standard home needing that, I just can't see it. But 10 gig I can absolutely see. So if it's something that concerns you, maybe spend a little bit extra money, because it is going to cost you a little bit more, and pull Cat 6A to all your locations instead of just regular Cat 6. All right, so that wraps up this video on costs. Again, we have some help in the guide. We are also putting together some courses about how to build a network head end that looks just like this, whether it's a rack or a network shelf. So you can, no matter what equipment you use, you don't have to use Ubiquiti for that. It'll work with any equipment, and it just teaches you how to plan this out and how to make this thing look really nice, just like the model right here behind me. We also have a course on how to install Ubiquiti specifically. I think a lot of people get intimidated by it, but like, I don't know anything about that. We actually have a course that will show you start to finish how to buy this exact equipment and set it up from start to finish, including VLANs, kids networks, how to do some of the advanced settings like some of the application blocking and stuff like that. And you don't need to be a network genius by any means. You don't even have to have a network background. We'll kind of walk you through how to do it start to finish. So anyone can have a nice network like this built in your home. So I encourage you to check out those links. Thank you for if you made it to the end of this video, thank you for sticking with us, and we hope to see you in future videos.